Hey everyone, and welcome back to another What's for Dinner video. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Stephanie and I do food related content here on this channel. I love sharing new recipes with you so that it might give you some new dinner ideas and inspiration. With Easter fast approaching, I thought it would be a great idea to share with you some easy, delicious, and budget-friendly recipes that you can make with that leftover ham. I'm super excited to share them with you, so let's head on over to the kitchen and let's get started. The first meal I have for you this week is a ham chowder. So the first thing you want to do is cut up some potatoes. I have about 5 russet potatoes here that I've cut into bite-sized pieces, and now I'm just going to boil them until they are fork tender. While my potatoes are cooking, I'm going to get started on my chowder. I've heated up some oil here in a large pot, and to that I'm just adding in 1 finely diced onion, and I'm going to season it with some salt and pepper. I'm going to cook this until they become translucent, and then I'm going to add half a teaspoon of minced garlic and let it cook for another minute until the garlic becomes fragrant. Now I'm adding half a cup of flour and I'm going to let this cook for another minute or two. You want to continuously stir this so that the flour doesn't burn. Here I'm whisking in 4 cups of low sodium chicken broth. It will appear very lumpy, but don't worry, just keep stirring and the lumps will eventually go away. Next thing to go in is 2 cups of half and half, which is also called cereal cream. I'm also going to season this with some salt and pepper. I'm adding 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. You can always add more later on if you need it. And also, if you're using a regular store-bought chicken broth instead of the low sodium, then you might want to skip on the salt or add less. Now I'm just going to bring this to a boil and let it cook over medium heat for about 10 to 15 minutes until the sauce thickens, and you want to make sure to stir this constantly so that it doesn't stick. Once my sauce has thickened up, I'm going to add in my ham. Here I have about 2 cups of diced ham. So I'm just going to add that in, and then I'm also going to add in my cooked potatoes. I'm going to stir this up, and then I'm going to add some cheese. Here I'm adding about a cup of cheddar cheese, and then I'm going to stir this in until the cheese is completely melted. This would also be a good time to taste it and see if it needs more salt and pepper. Once the cheese is all melted, we are done. I just added some green onions on top for garnish, as well as some extra ham and cheese, and this was delicious. I love that you don't need a whole lot of ingredients to make it. It's super easy to make, it's budget friendly, and it tasted really good. I was really impressed with this one. Now let's go on to the next meal. Next up is a leftover ham casserole. So to get started, the first thing you're going to want to do is cook some egg noodles. I have a large pot of boiling water here. I'm going to add them in and I'm going to cook them according to package direction. Here I have 1 3/4 cup of half and half, and to that I'm going to stir in 1 1/2 teaspoon of cornstarch. Then in a medium saucepan, I've melted 1 tablespoon of butter over medium heat, and to that I'm adding in 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. I'm just going to saute this for about a minute or 2 until it becomes fragrant. Now be careful not to burn your garlic. Now I'm adding half a teaspoon of Italian seasoning and 1/4 teaspoon of oregano, and I'm going to stir this and let it cook for another minute or so. I'm now going to whisk in my cornstarch and half mixture, and I'm going to let this simmer until the sauce thickens. And you want to make sure to stir often so that it doesn't stick. Once the sauce has thickened, you're going to add in some cheese. Here I'm adding about 3/4 cup of shredded cheddar cheese, and I'm going to stir it until it's completely melted. Then I'm going to stir in about half a cup of Parmesan cheese. Once that is completely melted, I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. Now I'm just going to grab my cooked noodles and I'm going to add in 2 cups of chopped up ham, followed by 1 can of corn that have been drained. I'm then going to mix in my sauce, and then I'm going to transfer this into a baking dish. For the topping, I decided to double it. So here, instead of 2 tablespoons, I have 4 tablespoons of melted butter that I've quickly melted in the microwave. And to that, I'm going to mix in half a cup of panko breadcrumbs. Going to sprinkle the topping over my casserole, and then I'm going to bake this in the oven at 375 for 20 to 30 minutes. So here it is right out of the oven. Mine took about 20 minutes to cook. I served this with some Caesar salad and it was delicious. If you're not a huge fan of garlic though, then this might not be for you because you can definitely taste it in here. I, however, love garlic and I thought this was really, really good. I love how easy it was to make, and it's definitely a great way to use up some of that leftover ham. I was pleasantly surprised with this one. Now on to the next meal. The next meal is a ham and bean soup. This next one I'll be making in the slow cooker, but it can definitely be done on the stovetop as well. So here I have some vegetables that I had already prepped the night before to save up on time. I have 1.5 cup of diced carrots, 1 cup of diced celery, and 1 chopped up onion. I've also already chopped up my ham. You're going to need about 3 cups of diced ham. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my ham to my slow cooker. Now my ham did not have a bone in, but if yours do, keep it. Add it into your soup, and trust me, it's going to give it even more flavor. Now I'm adding in my vegetables. And here I'm adding 2 cans of white kidney beans that I've already drained and rinsed. The recipe calls for 3 15-ounce cans. These are 20-ounce cans, so I'm only using 2 instead of 3. Now I'm adding in 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, which is about the equivalent of 4 cloves of fresh garlic. I'm then going to season it with 1 teaspoon of thyme and 1 teaspoon of savory. The recipe actually calls for half a teaspoon of rosemary, but I didn't have any, so I'm using savory instead. And because I really like the taste of it, I decided to add 1 teaspoon instead of just half. Since I know my kids won't eat this and I like my soup with a little bit of heat, I also decided to add half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. I'm now adding 2 bay leaves, followed by 1 teaspoon of kosher salt and half a teaspoon of black pepper. The last thing to go in is 4 cups of vegetable broth. You can use chicken broth if you want, but keep in mind that it will slightly change the taste of the soup. Going to give this a good toss, and you can see that there isn't a whole lot of liquid in here, but this will create its own liquid during the cooking process. Now, with that being said, this is still a pretty thick soup, so if you like yours with a lot of liquid, then you'll probably want to add in more broth. Now I'm just going to cover it, and you want to cook it on low for 6 to 8 hours or on high for 3 to 4 hours. So my soup was done after 6 hours. I tasted it and I did find that it needed a little bit more salt and pepper, but that's something that you can always add into your own bowl after serving, so it's not a big deal. But this soup was delicious. It's healthy, it's super easy to make, and such a great way to use up that leftover ham. I went for a second bowl, which is something that I don't do often, and this tasted even better the next day. I'm definitely going to be making this one again. The last meal I have for you this week is a ham and pineapple rice. This is ready in 20 minutes, and it's perfect for those hectic weeknights. This one is super quick and easy, and the best part is that it's a one-pot meal, which means easy cleanup. To start off, you're going to need a large skillet, and like I said, this is super simple. I'm now just going to dump everything right in, starting with some ham. So here I have 2 cups of chopped up ham. Then I'm adding in 1 can of pineapple tidbits, followed by 1 cup of long grain white rice. For the rice, you want to make sure to rinse it well before adding it in, just to remove some of that surface starch so that you don't end up with some gummy rice. Now I'm going to add 1.5 cup of chicken broth and 1/2 cup of pineapple juice. Next thing to go in is 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, followed by 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Going to give this a good toss and bring it to a boil. Once you have this to a boil, you're going to cover it and cook it for about 10 minutes. So it's been about 10 minutes and I'm just going to quickly give it a good stir. I'm going to cover it back up and let it cook for another 5 to 10 minutes. Now that my rice is cooked, I'm going to toss in some green onions and then I'll be ready to serve. I just love how quick and simple this was. If you like the combination of pineapple with ham, then I'm sure you would love this. This was very tasty. I loved the flavor, and we really did quite enjoy this one. Alright you guys, so that is it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed making these meals with me. Thank you all so much for being here. I do really appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you're all having a fantastic week so far. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you again in my next one. Bye guys.